Good morning, children. Today I brought you your second lesson from Honeycomb. That is the gift of Chappals. It's a wonderful story, and with the textbook, we can read the story and understand the difficult words and situation in the story. Okay, this video is only the first part of your lesson. The second part we can come with another video. What you have to do is first you read the entire textbook, then come to the video and watch it. Then make the difficult word meanings and other usages in your notebook. Let us go. Children, your second story, a gift of Chappals from Honeycomb. Before we moving on to the story, let me read you the introductory sentence. Mridu is a young girl growing up in Madras, now called Chennai, with Tapi, her grandmother, and Tata, her grandfather. One afternoon, Tapi takes her to her aunt Jukumani's house to meet her cousins Lalli, Ravi, and Meena. So, children, this story is a character rich story. In the introductory sentence itself, we get the names of Mridu, her grandma, her grandpa, and Rukumani, Lalli, Ravi, and Meena. Let us check what these characters are with them for us. Come to the story. A smiling Rukumani threw open the door. Ravi and Meena rushed out, and Ravi pulled Mridu into house. Wait, let me take off my slippers, protested Mridu. She set them out neatly near a pair of large black ones. Those were grey actually, with the dust. You could see the clear mark of every toe on the front part of each slipper. The marks for the two big toes were long and scrawny. So, at the beginning of the story, we see that Rukumani and the children receiving Mridu and her grandma. When Rukumani threw open the door, Ravi and Meena rushed out to receive Mridu. And when Ravi pulled Mridu into the house, she cried, Wait, let me take off my slippers. So this is an Indian tradition. Before we going into a house, we usually remove our chappals just outside the house. So she wanted to do it. And she set her chappals near a pair of large black ones. Those were grey. The black chappals were grey with a lot of dust. You could see the clear mark of every toe on the front part of each slippers. The marks of the two big toes were long and scrawny. So, Mridu put her chappals near a large, black, grey, dusty chappals. Let us go and watch that black, grey, dusty chappal. Now you take a look at the chappal. You can see the big toe marks here and the small toes, and it is very scrawny, which means it is worn out. It is worn out because it's used for a long time. And you can see the toes, the mark of toes on the chappals, the big toes and the other toe marks, and it is scrawny. Scrawny here means it is very thin, or you can also call it skinny or starved. This is the meaning of this scrawny. You can also say that worn out. When you use a thing for a long period, it becomes worn out. And its opposite is obese. Obesity, have you heard about obesity? Yes. Or heavy or large. So, Mridu noticed the old chappals just outside the front door before she entered the house. Look at the second paragraph. Mridu didn't have much time to wonder about whose slippers they were, because these children did not allow her to wait there and look at it clearly, because Ravi dragged her to the backyard. Because Ravi dragged Mridu to the backyard behind a thick bitter berry bush. Look at the bitter berry bush. Ravi dragged Mridu to this bitter berry bush. Let us check what is there in it. There, inside a torn football lined with sacking and filled with sand, lay a very small kitten lapping up milk from a coconut half shell. Yes, he showed her a little kitten that was lapping up milk from a coconut half shell. Let us watch its lapping up milk and come back. You can see here a kitten lapping up milk from a bowl. In our story, it takes milk from a coconut shell. Look at the next paragraph. We found him outside the gate this morning. He was mewing and mewing. Poor thing, said Meena. So these children found the kitten only this morning. And she continued, it's a secret. Amma says, Party will leave for our Padumama's house if she knows we have a cat. So that's why these children kept this kitten under these bitter berry bushes. Their grandma, she didn't like to have a cat in her house. Now look at this paragraph. People are always telling us to be kind to animals, but when we are, they scream, "Oh, don't bring that dirty creature here," said Ravi. Ravi complaining here about the elders' attitude towards children, especially in the case of tending the pet animals. They used to tell him that to be kind to all animals, but if they bring any animal into house, they started screaming. Screaming means emotionally showing anger. That is the screaming. And do you know how hard it is just to get a little milk from the kitchen? Then Ravi started narrating the story of the adventure behind taking out a little bit of milk from the kitchen. Look at here. Party saw me with a glass in my hand just now. I told her I am very hungry. I want to drink it. But the way she looked at me, I had to drink most of it to throw her off the scent. So he went to the kitchen and took a glass and poured milk in it. It was at this moment his party noticed him, and her look that forced him to drink most of the milk. And he said to her, he was so hungry and he wanted to drink it. He said this and drank most of the milk, especially to throw her off the scent. Throw her off the scent here means, look at the phrase meaning given here. Mislead her so that she won't understand the real purpose. He just wanted to mislead her. His real purpose was not of his hungry, but he wanted the milk for the kitten. But Party did not like kitten or any animal in the house. So he wanted to hide it. So he did it. Then what happened? Then she wanted the tumbler back. Party, I will wash it myself. Why should I put you to trouble? Then, when his grandma wanted the tumbler back to wash, he promised her he would do it, and he did not want her to in trouble. I told her I had to run and pour the milk into this coconut shell and then run back and wash the tumbler and put it back before she got really suspicious. So he succeeded in it. Before she had any suspicion, suspicion here means any doubt of his real intention. He ran out, poured the milk into the coconut shell and got back, washed and kept the tumbler there. Now we have to think of some other way to feed Mahendran. Mahendran? This little kid's name is Mahendran? Mridu was impressed. It was a real name, not just a cute kitty name. So this is the dramatic moment in the story when Ravi said that this kitten's name is Mahendran. That really created an enthusiasm in Mridu. She asked, is Mahendran a real name for a cute kitty cat? She was really impressed. Look at the next paragraph. Actually, his full name was Mahendra Varma Pallava Punai. MP Punai, for short if you like. So Ravi here gave the full name of the little kitten. His full name is Mahendra Varma Pallava Punai. In shortcut, we can call him MB Punai. He is a fine breed of cat. Just look at his fur, like a lion's mane. Lion's mane here means the long hair of a lion. That is mane. And you know what the emblem of the ancient Pallava kings was? Don't you? He looked expectantly at Mridu. Expectantly means with expectation. With expectation. He waited for Mridu's answer. Mridu giggled. Think I am joking? Well, just wait. I will show you sometime. It is a It is clear you don't know a thing about history. Haven't you been to Mahabalipuram? Have you? Then from here onwards, he started narrating stories. He proved himself as a prolific. He was a prolific storyteller. He cooked up stories out of his own head. Look at that. He said mysteriously, haven't you been to Mahabalipuram? Have you? He said mysteriously. Mysteriously means in a very strange manner. He asked her in a strange manner. Well, when our class went to Mahabalipuram, I saw a statue of his tatas, etc. A fact is, Mahendran here is descendant from that very same ancient cat. So that was the fact he wanted to establish here. He was the descendant. He was the younger generation. He was the younger generation of that same ancient cat. A close relative, scientifically speaking, of none other than the lion, the Pallava lion. So he was the descendant of the Pallava lion. That is what he wanted to establish here. The emblem of the Pallava dynasty. The Pallava lion is the emblem of the Pallava dynasty, and this Mahendran was the descendant of that great ancient Pallava lion. And a little bit about Mahabalipuram that you have to know. Mahabalipuram is a little town near Chennai. Near Chennai. It is a World Heritage Site. A World Heritage Site. UNESCO declared it as a heritage site. You can see here 5 famous rock cut temples. And these 5 rock cut temples are called the 5 chariots. The 5 chariots of the Pandavas. The great Indian epic Mahabharata and its heroes, this Mahabalipuram. And this Mahabalipuram was the capital of the Pallava kings, and all these 5 rock cut temples were built in the 7th century. Look at this rock cut temple at Mahabalipuram. Like this, there are 5 temples built in the 7th century, and one lion is also there as the emblem. Look at this. This lion is the emblem of the Pallava kings. So he was connecting this little kitten's name with that Pallava dynasty and the Pallava dynasty's emblem, the Pallava dynasty's lion, the ancient lion. And Ravi went on walking around the bitter berry bush, waving a twig up and down. Twig means a little branch of the tree, a small branch of the tree. He was waving it up and down, his eyes sparkling, his eyes are shining when he was narrating this story. This cat is a descendant of none other than the Mahabalipuram Rishi cat. So this was his statement. This Little cat was the descendant of the famous Mahabalipuram Rishi cat. And if I may just remind you, they worshipped cats in ancient Egypt. Then he went on narrating stories. And if I may just remind you, they worshipped cats in ancient Egypt. The ancient Egyptian people, they worshipped cats, he said. Look at that. Next page. How he loved the sound of his own voice. Ravi was so impressed in his own voice, and Meena and Mridu exchanged looks. They looked at each other. What he was going to tell us? They were in a little bit of excitement and wonder. Look at the next one. What does that have to do with anything? Mridu demanded. Mridu asked, what was the relationship with that Egyptian worship of cats and this little Mahendran? Huh? I am telling you, this cat is descended from the Egyptian cat god. Oh no, goddess. Bastet. Yeah, that's it. Then he related this with the Egyptian god of Bastet. Bastet is an Egyptian cat god with a woman's body and a cat's head. I will show you one picture of this Bastet. Then you can understand very clearly how this little boy connects this little kitten with the historical emblems and characters. It's very interesting. Children, look at the image of Bastet. This is the Egyptian goddess with a cat's head and a woman's body, and it is considered as the goddess of protection, cats, perfume, ointment, etc. And this is the reference that Ravi made in the story. He related MP Punai with this Bastet. Look at the next one. So, well, one of the descendants of that cat goddess was a stowaway in one of the Pallava ships. And I will tell you the connection between the Egyptian cat goddess and this Mahabalipuram cat. Once a Pallava king visited Egypt, and when his return journey, a descendant of the cat goddess stowaway in his ship to India. Stowaway here means to come without a notice. If you read this, you can understand it. Okay? Come without being noticed. And his descendants was the Mahabalipuram Rishi cat. And the Mahabalipuram Rishi cat was the descendant of that cat, came from Egypt. And who was the descendant of the Egyptian cat goddess? Whose descendant is? Ravi flourished his stick at Mahendran. Then he showed this Mahendran as the descendant of that Mahabalipuram cat. Then he flourished. Flourished here means he waved his stick towards the little kitten. MP Punai here, he proudly announced. This MP Punai was the descendant of that cat. Whoop, eek. Then what happened was, there is a screaming. He screamed. And he shrieked. Shrieked also means screamed. Very pleased with himself. He was so pleased himself in his story. Mahendran looked up. When he waved the stick, Mahendran looked up. He was a little bit alarmed, little bit frightened. He had just been sharpening his claws on the edge of the coconut shell. He was just doing that. He was crawling on the coconut shell. But worse than Ravi's awful whoop. Whoop means the scream. The whoop eek. Eek is also scream. The screaming sound was a screech from the window. What a weird sound. Weird means very strange. Very strange sound is known as weird. If Mrudu was startled, actually Mrudu was shocked, hearing the sound that coming from the window. And here MB Punai was frightened out of his wits. He really frightened out of his wits. He couldn't control his emotion. And hair standing on end, he bounced up and scurried towards. Scurried means run fast. He scurried towards a bamboo tray of red chilies. Look at the picture of the bamboo tray. This is the bamboo tray of red chilies that Rukumani kept in the back courtyard for drying up. And the kitten tried to hide behind this tray of chilies, and he knocked them down over himself with red chilies that had been set out to dry. Trying to hide beneath it, he tipped a few chilies over himself. Tipped over here means knocked over. Knocked over. He tried to hide behind the bamboo tray. And what happened was he knocked over a few little chilies over him. And meow! He howled miserably. The screeching went on and on. Went on means continued. It continued. What's that noise? Said Mrudu. Mrudu didn't understand what was that noise. Then, that is Lalli learning to play the violin, grunted Ravi. With a laugh, Ravi answered, it was that Lalli was learning her lessons of violin. Then she will never learn a thing. The music master just goes on playing like a train whizzing on and on. The music master was playing so smoothly, very musically he was playing like a train going on, whizzing on and on, while Lalli is all the time derailing, but Lalli could not keep the track. She used to derail each time when she took the violin and play, and going completely off track. This was the humorous incident. While Lalli was learning the lessons, when she started playing the violin, it started screeching sound, and it made MB Punai went out of his sense, and he tried to hide behind the tray, and he knocked over the red chilies. This is the first part of your story, Gift of Chappals. With this, I am going to wrap up this video, and we will come with the second part in the next video. Goodbye.